Thank you, Matthias. And thank you for the great session. And thank you for everyone. We're starting a few minutes late, but you are here in the right place. This is our final session of today. As Matthias mentioned, my name is Caitlin Corrigan. In addition to being the scientific coordinator of the Institute for Ethics and Artificial Intelligence, I've had the opportunity and pleasure to work on an initiative very close to my heart, the Responsible AI Network Africa. The transitional nature of AI technology platforms makes the ethical application of AI a global concern. Because AI inherently interacts with its surroundings, culture, political, and environmental differences and context may produce different sets of ramifications, whether positive or negative, resulting from the use of AI-based technology. There's therefore a growing need to understand how AI may impact or be accepted by societies in various regions around the world. To this end, the Responsible AI Network Africa was founded through a partnership between the Faculty of Electrical and Computer Engineering and Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana, a strategic partner of Technical University of Munich, and the Institute for Ethics and Artificial Intelligence. Our aim was to build a network of scholars working on responsible development and use of AI in Africa, and to bring together emerging researchers to discuss and build joint projects on the ethical and social challenges arising at the interface of technology and human values, specifically also as it relates to sustainable development. So far, through virtual and in-person workshops, the network has provided a platform for cross-regional and interdisciplinary research collaboration and discussion, which is exactly what we plan here today for our panel on opportunities and challenges for responsible AI in Africa. With that, I would like to introduce the moderator of the session and our close RAIN Africa partner, the other founding member, Jerry Pollo from KNUST. Professor Pollo is the head of Quality Assurance and Planning Unit at KNUST under the Vice Chancellor's Office, a co-founder of the Responsible AI Network Africa, and a member of the Global AI Ethics Consortium. He's done extensive research in IoT, intelligent systems, and AI, and currently leads the Emerging Networks and Technology Research Laboratory at the Faculty of Electrical and Computer Engineering at KNUST, which focuses on digital development technology research. He also leads the KNUST College of Engineering Innovation Center, which drives innovation among students. Jerry, we're very excited to have you and this amazing panel here today, and I will hand the floor over to you and the panel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Caitlin. It's exciting to be here once again, and we'll be reflecting on opportunities and challenges for responsible AI in Africa. Like Caitlin said, my name is Jerry John, an associate professor of telecom engineering at KNUST and a co-founder of Responsible AI Network Africa. I am of the firm opinion that Africa has a major role to play as far as the fourth industrial revolution is concerned. One of the key drivers of the revolution is artificial intelligence and its application in key sectors of the African economy, like agriculture, health, transportation, and commerce. These offer key opportunities for development, but the ethical use of the technology also poses great challenges. Today, we'll be interacting on responsible AI in Africa, opportunities and challenges. There couldn't have been a better time to reflect on this topic than now. We are going to be listening to 4 speakers, and with your permission, I want to introduce each and every one of the speakers to you. To begin with, we will be listening to Kwame Gadagu, who is with MTN Mobile Ghana. By way of profile, Kwame currently works as a senior manager, enterprise planning and architecture at MTN Ghana. Kwame's interest and motivation is to see the fourth industrial revolution manifest and be acceptable within safe environments to better people's lives. We will also be listening to Teki Akwete Falconer, who is with African Digital Rights Hub. So what we want to do is we will want to take the introductions and then we will listen to the presentation and then we will introduce and then go ahead with the presentation. And so at this point in time, we will invite Pakwesi to start with the presentation. Let's go, please.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. I hope you can hear me and the audience can hear me as well.
Yes, please.
Yes, okay. So I would like to just talk through a few of the points as you have introduced the topic. And for us in Africa, I mean, it is important that even as we're talking about responsible AI in Africa, it's important for us to actually master the topic at hand, because usually what happens is most of these technologies are developed, and what we do in Africa is to start adopting. But we start adopting based on what the developers have actually told us that the system can offer. So it is important that as we start talking about the responsibility of AI, we start understanding what AI brings to us. Okay, because in many spheres of our industry, what we've done is we've customized whatever we have globally to suit our local content. I mean, talking about money transfer has changed dramatically in Africa in the way we do money transfer. So we need to be abreast of the fact that whatever system that we have to adopt, we understand and suit it locally according to our laws, according to our standards, and according to what we preach these days about data privacy. So I'll give you an example. So most platforms, vendors that they come to us in the industry, I mean, say in areas of technology, they come preaching that we're giving this technology, it has AI components. But is it that they just want to sell the AI component or make money out of that technology? You know, so it is important that we disassociate what the technology brings and what AI actually brings. I mean, before I even talk about the opportunities and challenges, I would like to state the fact that government backing is important. Okay, we have the private sector and we have the government sector. In Africa, we have a couple of AI centers that are being funded globally. But whatever they are developing, who is actually using them? Is it the government? Is it private sector? Because you see two streams of initiatives where the private sector is developing or adopting their own technology with respect to AI, whilst the government is also adopting theirs in respect to AI. But we need to have that synergy in place to ensure that in Africa or a certain African country, we have a synergy in place where both government and the private sector are actually making use of the right technology, because there you can infuse the right responsibilities in terms of the values, in terms of the laws, in terms of the standards, so that you have one synergy to play with. So in terms of the opportunities, I think that leads me to the first opportunity, where if only the AI platform can be an open AI platform, we can adopt and infuse our local laws, local regulations, data privacy laws within it to give us the right benefit of that AI. Instead of just getting a black box that we say start using, and then it becomes a thing of we don't know how it was developed, we don't know where the data goes, we don't know how the data is stored, and then it opens a can of worms for us. But in terms of the challenges, I think we have a number of challenges, and I'll only mention a couple of them, Terry, before I hand over to you. So as we know in Africa, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa, our systems can be quite disconnected. We don't have an integrated system where you can actually trace somebody from when they were born to what activity they do in their older age. And apart from that as well, addressing systems are a problem in terms of actually locating people. Do they have the same identity? They have multiple identities. It's a real problem that we grapple with. And then the data itself, where does the data sit? Is it sitting locally? Is it sitting globally? who is controlling the data, who is making use of the data. These are a lot of the components that we grapple with every day. And as I mentioned before, the cost of AI. What is the cost of AI? So in a nutshell, I'm just saying that the challenges do outweigh the opportunities we have, but if only we can work together and have an open AI in place, I think we can start building our own model that can help for the future instead of just adopting models just because they work in another geography. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pakwesi. That was insightful. Pakwesi talks about having an open AI platform, and he also talks about cost and making sure that whatever we are developing is of benefit to those for whom we are developing it for. Very soon, we will be listening to Jackie Falconer. Let me give a profile as far as she is concerned. So Techie Falconer is an ICT telecom lawyer, a privacy or data protection consultant, and a senior partner at law firm based in Accra, Ghana. She's also the founder and executive director of the Africa Digital Rights Hub, LBG, a member of the UN Global Pulse Privacy Advisory Group, a non-resident fellow of the Center for Global Development. Previously, Techie has worked for the government of Ghana in the development of several key legislations for the ICT sector and was the first executive director of the Data Protection Commission, Ghana. Dear listeners, I present to you Techie Falconer. Over to you, Techie. Let's hear you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the organizers for the opportunity to come and speak here. I am coming to this conversation as a lawyer, and that means one thing to me. It means that we should look, no matter what society we are trying to build, we should look at building systems that enable our societies become better. You know, so if the essence of life is to serve others and for others and to do good, then our objective with responsible AI must be to serve people and to do good. And so this is the premise by which I am looking at this. What are the challenges and opportunities? In terms, I'll start with the good news. I think that for Africa, when it comes to responsible AI, we are coming to the table a little late. But I believe that that is also a very unique opportunity for us as Africans to be able to learn from the mistakes of others and to make it right. In terms of the challenges, I believe Pakwesi has hinted on it already. There is the tendency for us to become consumers of the technology rather than developing these technologies within the context of our unique environments and making sure that it serves our people better. So those are the conversations that we should be having. I think that Africa is at a very unique and a right place to build responsible AI in enabling its socioeconomic development. But how do we do this? We can build a responsible AI by thinking around issues of access. So for me, the ethical considerations must look at issues of access to these platforms. We must look at issues of inclusion, you know, because there is the likelihood that a vast community of our people may be excluded when we are using AIs to take decisions on their behalf and all of that. So it's very important to start looking at these things from the inclusion perspective. We must think around trust. So AI systems must be trusted. And yes, we have data protection laws, we have all kinds of cybersecurity laws in place, but I don't think that it is enough there. We have to go beyond that. We have to make sure that these trust systems are working. You know, we have to make sure that the institutions are knowledgeable enough to be able to appropriately provide the necessary oversight, which is also a key factor to building a responsible AI. We need to have the right oversight, the right frameworks, the right courts, the right regulators that are equipped with the resources that they need to enable them interpret these laws. One thing that we're very quick at in Africa is to have the beautiful laws, but we know that beyond them, you know, beyond the rhetoric, it has to live. These laws are living documents. It must live, it must breathe, it must serve the people. It must do good to the people. So we need to start looking at these things from there. And last but not the least, we need to make sure that the systems that we're building protect our communities and they protect the people. It will not be a responsible AI if at the end of the day, we're not thinking about the protection that it generates or provides to the people. So yes, Africa is at a unique place, and I think that we have the opportunity to learn from the mistakes of the developed world, but we really have to build our own and make these systems work for us.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's an insightful one. She talks about the fact that we must tailor our solutions towards the African environment, looking at situations of access, inclusion, trust, oversight, and particularly making sure that indeed we are protecting our users. That was a good one. Well done, Falconer. We want to move on and listen to our third speaker, Mr. Abraham Kukusam, who is with GIZ Fair Forward. By way of introduction, Abraham is an advisor for artificial intelligence for sustainable development at the German Technical Corporation, GIZ, in Ghana. At GIZ Ghana, he manages the development and implementation of initiatives under the global project called Fair Forward. That is translating into artificial intelligence for all. As part of this role, he is coordinating activities of the Africa AI Accelerator, which is intended to give technical and business development skills to startups in Ghana, Rwanda, Uganda, and South Africa. Without wasting much time, I invite our brother Abraham Kukusam to make his presentation. Over to you, Abraham.
Thank you, Prof. Please let me share my screen. As Prof said, I work for the GIZ project Fair Forward. And for us in Fair Forward, when it comes to responsible AI, you hear many people calling it different names. Trustworthy AI, ethical AI, human-centered AI. And even though they all have subtle differences, and for us in Fair Forward, we are very much focused on open, inclusive, and sustainable approaches to artificial intelligence. And broadly, when it comes to the challenges of responsible AI in Africa, I am worried about two main areas: the design, implementation, and deployment of responsible AI, and then policy and governance of AI systems. So under the design and deployment of AI, I am more concerned about how we address biases, and also as was said by the first speaker, how we do not see AI systems as black boxes, because most of the time Africans, when it comes to technology, we consume more than we produce. And then also when it comes to governance structures, I am also concerned about the lack of frameworks for fair, ethical, and responsible AI. Now, to look at the challenges, I would say that Fair Forward as a project is based on the German AI strategy, and Fair Forward was actually commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development to actually implement part of the strategy that talks about networking. So Fair Forward is working towards inclusion. So the focus is on the global south, on Africa and on Asia. And Fair Forward as a project has identified 3 main challenges that it's working to solve. And these challenges, even though they are intended to remove barriers towards AI, I also believe that they are also going directly to solve some of the challenges that we have in implementing responsible AI in Africa. And I will share a few of them. So one of the biggest challenges when it comes to responsible AI is the issue of technical know-how. And when it comes to biases, there are different kinds of biases. But if you look at Africa, a vast continent with over 135 ethnic groups, over 2,000 spoken languages, and a population of over 1 billion. If you want to apply AI systems in this part of the world, then you need technical know-how. And this is something we do not have. And so Fair Forward as a project is working on improving technical know-how in our partner countries, in Ghana, Rwanda, Uganda, and then South Africa. So we are creating a e-learning platform that will help people just go to the Atingi platform and then they can learn about responsible AI. Now, in partnership with Responsible AI Network Africa, just about 3 weeks or a month ago, we were discussing how we can incorporate AI ethics into the curriculum of our universities. And because we think that this is an area where we require a lot of training. We are also working in our partner countries to strengthen the local AI community by giving them training and developing their capacity. When it comes to access to data, we are building alliance for open data and technologies. So this was also addressed by the first speaker. And here I want to mention that we are an associate member of the Lacuna Fund. So the Lacuna Fund was set up targeting specifically at low and middle income countries to provide resources that will help us build data sets to solve the problem of lack of unbiased data in this part of the world. And Fair Forward is very much an active member of the Lacuna Fund. Then with the Africa AI Accelerator, we are not only supporting the startups, but we are also trying to help them incorporate responsible AI principles into their technology, their products, and their services. And so as part of the startup, just last week, we asked the A+ Alliance and AI group interested in responsible AI to train them on spotting biases when it comes to data sets. Then in the area of policy frameworks, we are working with the United Nations Global Pulse to design a national AI policy framework for Ghana. And then in Rwanda, we are also working towards developing a national AI strategy that incorporates all the principles of responsible AI that the two speakers highlighted. And we also know that across countries, the policies and the frameworks and the legislations are not the same. So we are also partnering Smart Africa at the continental level to also work with them to fashion out an AI blueprint that African countries can customize and then use. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abraham. That has been good, has been insightful once again. It talks about framework. It talks about the need for technical know-how. It talks about the need for access and the need for policy and for governments to get involved as far as driving policy in AI is concerned. We want to listen to our very last speaker, Professor Kwame Osei-Boateng. Professor Kwame Osei-Boateng is the director of the Institute of Distance Learning, Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and currently chairs the Interim Council of the Ghana Communication Technology University, GCTU. He's a professor of computer engineering and the director of the Institute of Distance Learning. Professor Boateng was also the chairman of a committee to draft a curriculum for a Masters of Artificial Intelligence program in KNUST. My dear listeners, I present to you Professor Kwame Osei-Boateng. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Yeri, and many thanks to organizers for organizing such a forum for us. And I have a particular interest in the basic principles of AI. And to my understanding, is that AI's food is data. And it means that we must have data from various national organs, and as to how to make those things available in an ethical manner is one question. But the point is that in many cases, they are non-existent, or where they exist, they are not really centralized, and it becomes very difficult even for people that are doing research to get access to certain data that they need in their work. But that is even about researchers. So if you have a system that is going to operate using AI, then availability of some of these things is what we need to look at, because AI has a very good, effect. And particularly, I'm looking at the fighting corruption in our systems, because as you automate systems that interact with people, then you have a situation where machines that have been trained to act in certain way, unlike human beings that can see a few coins and change their minds by refusing to apply the right policies and the regulations, just bending rules here and there. If you have systems developed based on AI to do some of these things for you, you are likely to have a situation where it will be difficult for anybody to manipulate. And so, for instance, in Ghana, there's a drive for digitization, and there have been reports on some industrial establishments that digitize, and within 1 year, they saw improvement in revenue collection, manifold improvement in hitting their target, which means that we really have a good opportunity there. Among all the other things that we can do, I believe that we can use it to minimize corruption in our societies. And in as much as we can also use it to do other things in agriculture, in helping us with education and all that. But then we have a challenge in that right now, I don't think we have the critical mass of people that have expertise in AI. And so first and foremost, we need to think about how to make people interested, researchers interested in these areas, and also developers that will actually uptake research findings and try to put them into use in systems that will help our countries. And in saying this, first and foremost, we need to educate a number of them. And so education, I know AI itself can be used in education, but I'm talking about educating people in AI. And that aspect of the work needs to also be taken a look at. Because for instance, I have had a notion that, for instance, when it comes to development in the digital era, developments in designs and all that, you usually will have to build a capacity, have critical mass of people that are interested in doing things in those areas. And as they begin applying them, they now form a market that will make it possible for somebody, an investor, to invest money in our part of the world, in order that we'll be able to create, as some of the earlier speakers alluded to. Often everything is developed outside and they are shipped to us just for usage. But from the ethical points and ethical aspects of the use of AI to make it a responsible AI will depend very much on the ethics of societies. And since our societies are not the same as those that exist in the advanced world, we need to have people on the ground who are really very much involved in developing AI-based systems for our economies. And so that is the angle from which I would like to contribute. We need to train people in the area of AI who continue with the work that people are currently doing today, so that it will be a sustainable cycle. And also, we need to take advantage of AI. And in as much as we want to take advantage of AI, I agree with the previous speakers that we don't need to just import black boxes and impose them on ourselves, but we should collaborate with the whole world by all means, but then we should understand things from the first principles, know how to apply them to our situations in a responsible manner, and take all the advantages that comes with it. But before then, we must prepare ourselves. We must make sure that we have data available, and also we have the critical mass of people that have expertise in the areas, so that when it comes to push, when things comes to push, we'll have people there to help us push ahead and have some systems that will be unique, that will have been tweaked to actually meet our needs in this part of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Kwame Osei-Boateng. Professor Boateng talked about the need to understand the basic principles of AI, also talked about the need for availability of data, since AI feeds on data. He also talked about the need to train people to understand the nuances of AI and also take people through training. One of the things that he also mentioned, which really struck me, was using AI to fight corruption in Africa, and also ensuring that there are local developers who can tailor solutions to the African situation. So at this point in time, we want to move into our Q&A session where we take questions from our audience, and then our experts will attempt to answer these questions. The first question that we have on board, and this is open to all of you to respond to. All speakers have spoken about the need for access. And what we want to know is, what do you think governments and then stakeholders can do as far as increasing access to AI is concerned? Any of you who is ready can start.
Yes. So first, before we even talk about access, I think Kwame mentioned it. The data must be there, right? The data must be available, and it should be usable. And that is, I believe that the technical people will more answer that. But from where I sit, from some of the conversations that we have had, it is not readily available. And when, in order also to ensure access, we need to think about building systems and structures that facilitate the easy movement of the right amount of data to the right person. So you want to look at a framework that is built around who are we giving the information to, right? In our part of the world, we're not quick to put together policies, but this is where it's very important to have your data sharing policies ready. If you have core data records, who do you plan to give the core data records to? Under what conditions are you going to make those core data records accessible to them? Is it something that you are outright transferring to them, or is it something that they can access from a particular point? And what is going to be the transmission mode of the data? And what even is the kind of data? Are we giving anonymized, pseudo-anonymized data? You know, what kind of work are we anticipating we're going to be using the data for? Because these are all things that will feed into other regulatory and legal requirements, for instance, data protection, right? So you have credible data that you want to use. Definitely the regulator is going to come to your door to say that you need to ensure that, you know, you're giving the right data. Data protection will allow you to share data for statistical purpose, but it has to be a certain kind of data, you know, which is available. Now, the person you are sharing it with, who is that person? Is it a credible individual? Your policy should be able to say who I want to share the information with. And I think sometimes the challenges that we face in our continent is because we have not predefined these things. If we're able to predefine it, it tells a story of who you're going to give access to, in what form, and when they can have access. And that really facilitates access to any such information.
Okay, thank you so much, Teki. Any other person to add on, or we move on? Any more?
Okay, so
okay, yes, Abraham.
I will add a few words. So one of the challenges Fair Forward identify is access to data. And because of this, we are initiating a number of projects. So one I mentioned is the Lacuna Fund, and then the other one is the Open for Good Alliance. So all these alliances is to help open up data. We favor open data principles. However, we know that not every individual or organization will want to freely open up their data. But we advocate data governance models that are innovative. So as Teki mentioned, you need a certain framework around which you share data. So we are looking at things like data commons, data trust. So if there is, say, a data trust, you can collaboratively build a data set and share the data with certain rules governing them. But I think we need, as Africans, to really look at the issue of data governance models and then data trust and data commons.
All right, thank you so much. Professor Boateng, please. Yes.
Yes, I would also want to say that the data is mainly not available, so we need to generate the data. But before we can open it up for usage as we should, we need really to, because it becomes a common good, and anything that is common good is likely to be abused. And so having regulations as to how this data is supposed to be put to use is very, very important. So we need really to determine the do's and don'ts in how some of these data commons, if we are to establish them, will be used, needs to be looked at. And once we get all those things in place and we have generated the data, we can share. And once we share, I know that depending on what anybody, any researcher, any developer is doing, the data that will be collected definitely will have to be processed. So that way it will be difficult to say if you have a particular format, because the format that in which anybody will be using it in their application will depend on how the application itself, wants it done. And so I believe that once the data is available, anybody that gets the data should have the freedom to reformat it so that his system can use it. But then abuse is what we need to really guard against. So that is my take on it.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. Boateng. Pakwesi, this question specifically goes to you. Regarding governance around data, one of our audience wants to know who controls data within our context.
Okay, that's a very brilliant question. So you need to know, just like Prof. Kwame said, somebody starts generating the data. So in some sense, that person owns that data because they generate it from either their platform or whichever service they provide. Now, they generate the data, and most likely they themselves process them. So an example like an international software that you use in your own company or in the government, they know how the data should be generated. So in some sense, they can keep that data as well as the customer who keeps the data. Let me give you an example. How do we get a Google map? We get a Google map because they collect statistics and data from everybody's phone, though they are not aware, and they use that data to model around an algorithm that provides if the express route is free or not. Sometimes they are aware, sometimes they are not aware. So in trying to play with governance or aligning governance properly, it's up to the customer using that software or that equipment to start working with whichever partner they employ on deployment model. How do you deploy the software? Do you deploy it on the cloud? The moment you deploy on the cloud, a global cloud, it means that you are keeping the data there. If you deploy locally, are you going to say things like, okay, the vendor does not have access to the data and only the customer has access to the data? That's another sphere. Another way of looking at it is encrypting the data. Okay, somebody encrypts, somebody decrypts. Whoever is encrypting means the data is hidden and it's only shown to the person who must decrypt it. And another thing you need to look at also is, do you actually show all of the data or you show part of the data? A number of people monetize data. So that means because you generate the data, they will come to you and say, you know what, we want to monetize this data to provide a service. For example, advertisement. They want to see how people shift in traffic, or do they go mostly to the mall on a Sunday so that they can start advertising products to them there. You can actually give analytics on the data without revealing who goes there or what's their name, what's their phone number, etc. So all I'm trying to say is somebody generates the data, and most likely that entity will own the data. But then how is the data used and what part of data is used? We need to be in that conversation with whoever is developing to make sure that we don't have a leakage of data out to somebody who should not have access. So that plays part in that governance structure that can be guided by the data protection laws, et cetera, et cetera. But the generator of the data and the customer must be aware of these things. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kwame. There is another question here. The audience will want to know regarding, the question is, what will you expect for the greatest shift in progress to come from? Basically, when it comes to AI, and we are talking about AI being a key actor as far as the industrial revolution is concerned. The audience will want to know the greatest shift. Will it come from academia? Will it come from legislation? Or it will come from industry? These three key actors, which of them has the likelihood of giving us the greatest push as far as AI is concerned in Africa?
Okay, Prof, I will attempt to.
Okay, Abby. Yeah.
Yes. Prof, so you are in academia, but I don't know if I should say that it will come from academia. But the game changer for us is advanced digital skills. And I don't know if academia will provide that. So maybe academia must also look at this, because the World Bank, for instance, predicts that Sub-Saharan Africa by 2030, a lot of digital jobs will be generated. Ghana alone is going to have about 9 million of them, digital jobs, including jobs in AI, data science, software engineering, and what have you. But there is a huge challenge, which is a skills gap. And this skills gap does not exclude those who also did technical and technological courses like myself. Even for them, there is a skill gap. And so I think that is where the game changer is. If we are able to train our young people in these digital skills, that is where the push will come from. It will affect all the other legislation, it will affect industry.
Okay. Okay, so bridging the skills gap is what Abraham is saying. Let's hear from the senior colleague in academia. Yes, Prof. Wati.
Yes, what I would like to say is I am not saying it will come from here or it will come from there, but it will come from a coordinated effort. Because often academia, you create artificial environment within which to test principles and stuff like that, which may not be exactly applicable in industry as is and needs to be worked on. So I believe that it is the collaboration of industry and academia, as well as technology education. I mean, technology and vocational, because it's going to be so widespread that even if somebody is a hairdresser, might still have some knowledge in AI to be able to function in an AI economy. So I would say that it takes a multi-sided approach, that we need to work together to ensure that we advance the cause of AI. But in terms of applying the already existing AI principles and skills to our various industries, we need to have this technology and vocational educational aspect of it also in focus.
Okay.
Thanks.
So from what is saying, it will take a collaborative effort from all the key actors. Kwame, what do you say?
Yes, I'll take a bold bet on this. From experience, I think the industry will spearhead it. I mean, for some time before the rest catch up.
Okay, so Kwame is saying industry will have to take the lead and others will catch up. Techie, what do you say? Anything from legislation side?
I definitely not legislation. We always play catch up. And it wouldn't be a good thing for legislation to take the lead in this area. It would be disastrous when it comes to technological development. But I must say that industry and academia, I completely agree with Prof. Industry and academia may take the lead on that. In terms of legislation, it is important, but I think that we should not overplay its importance in the development of technologies. And there are many ways by which we can really engage. Sorry about that. My community is a bit loud. I live closer to the middle of town. So yeah, so it's very likely to be industry and academia in tow. You know, law, we will catch up with you along the line.
Okay, Techie, there is also a question about what exactly is being done to empower and protect youngsters about their rights through the effective use of AI. Are there instances where AI is being used in protecting and educating youngsters about their rights? And then there is also a question about whether there are laws with reference to when people have irresponsibly used data. Are there laws in that regard?
So yes, in terms of protecting youngsters, I believe that my organization does a lot of awareness. It may not be AI specific, but we wholly look at the digital technology and how it interplays with people. And we try as much as possible to raise awareness, especially among the youth who are the major users of some of these platforms. I believe AI in itself as a technology can be used to enhance such awareness, you know, and it's already happening in some places. But Africa, as usual, we will catch up and we will get there. I think right now, even if you look at the context of the kind of laws we have, and where we are with AI, our focus is on particular areas, for instance, agriculture and other areas, not necessarily on using it to create awareness in laws as well. So we will get there. In terms of protection, there are laws out there, and just this afternoon I had the opportunity to speak to a school of internet governance earlier, and I was telling them that our community, especially in Ghana and in most African countries, is saturated with laws. What we are not seeing is our strong regulators, and partly they're not strong enough because we're not providing the right resources to enable them do their jobs efficiently. So from the Electronic Transactions Act through to the Data Protection Act, through to the Electronic Communications Act, if you're talking about Ghana, now there's a Cybersecurity Act as well. You have a plethora of legislations that can enable civil action, that can enable criminal action against offenders that use these platforms wrongly. What we are not seeing is that the institutions are not proactive and we're not resourcing them well, so that at the end of the day, we can see, you know, the laws that we're putting in work for the people. That is the challenge that we have.
Thank you very much. It's unfortunate that time runs when things are getting more and more exciting. So at this point, I'll hand over to Caitlin for concluding remarks. Over to you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Jerry. And thank you all so much for this incredibly interesting panel. Before we end the event today, I just want to alert you to a few things that will be coming up for the Responsible AI Network Africa. First, we will host our final workshop of the year on December 2nd on the use of AI in healthcare in Africa, with researchers from Uganda, Namibia, Senegal, and Rwanda, and moderated by our representative for Kenya, Patrick Wamuyo from the School of Science and Technology of the United States International University in Kenya. You can register for this as well as get much more information on our network at rainafrica.org. Secondly, if you look on the webpage as well, you'll see we now have an open call for travel scholarships for researchers and academics who want to participate in the Responsible AI Forum in June 2021 in Munich. Those applications are due by February 15th, shortly after the abstract due date for the conference. And finally, on our webpage, you will also see a new call to submit abstracts for a new project that RAIN Africa is working on with Fair Forward and KNUST and TUM on a book project on AI ethics and higher education in Africa. We will also be expecting submissions for chapters for that book until January 1st. So I would like to thank you all again for joining us for these 3 incredible sessions today. We will continue all this tomorrow morning for our next 2 final sessions on exchange and partnership for responsible AI use in pandemics and the Global AI Ethics Consortium, as well as our final session on ethics and AI decision making. So with that, I thank you all again, and everyone have a nice evening.